I went to school when I was 4, or even younger. Probably I was in the nursery class. I was about 3, I think, and I went to a Catholic school. It was in Old West, but at that time was called St. Gerard's, and which is now called Christ the King. Anyway, I went to that school when I was about 3, and I can remember it ever so plain because Miss McCormack, who was our teacher, used to take us out on the lawn. We used to have like little gardens around the school, and read us stories in the summer. The sun was out, and I can remember that ever so plain.
What sort of stories did she read?
I couldn't tell you, not now. I was only about 3, but I can remember we used to sit on the stools and listen to her. We sort of took these stools out with us, and by all accounts, how I came to go to school was I kind of left home. One day I opened the gate and followed my 2 sisters who went to the same school, followed them up and went into Miss McCormack's class and sat down. She obviously knew me, or knew my mum and that, like my sisters, and said, "Oh, you started school, have you?" And I must have said yes, so I started. And when my mum, who was frantic, ran all over the estate looking for me and made her way to Fieldwood Broadway to the school and discovered me in there, the teacher said, "That's quite all right, Mrs. Roberts, let her stay." I don't know if you can do that today, but that's how I started school.
Well, not many children go to school voluntarily, first of all, do they?
No, but I thought maybe I would have felt as though my sisters was going and I should go with them, like. And then we were evacuated then, during the war, like, to Cornwall. But we were evacuated, we always say we were evacuated, but we was evacuated with my mother. And so we all went to Cornwall, me and my 2 sisters and my mum, and we had a little cottage in a little place called Brieg, just outside of Helston and Porthleven, all around that area. And I think we was down there about 2.5 years, something like that. And then and of course I went to school down there, and when I was about 4, I suppose then, and I can remember in the playground, the aeroplanes used to dive down low, and we could see the pilots, and we'd wave to them and cheer to them, as they was going over. And but that was the evacuees used to do that. But the Cornish kids used to stare at us because they couldn't understand it, because they didn't know anything about war or bombing or nothing, like, And then when we came back from Cornwall, I went to school at Connaught Road School. Reason being, I didn't continue at the Catholic school, was my 2 sisters were getting older then, and they would have been going to secondary school soon. And the only secondary school for Catholics then would have been right back into the city, like off the centre, or round about the centre, St Mary's on the Quay. I think that would have been the nearest school, Catholic school, for them to go to. And as my mother thought that was a bit stupid to pay bus fare, all the way to the centre, when round the corner was a perfectly good council school. So when we come back, because she let them to go to the council school as they was older, she thought, well, I might as well go there as well. But I still went to church, to Mass, and we used to be on a Tuesday morning. And in the council school, it was very liberal like that. I mean, they allowed you to go to Mass over at the Catholic school, no questions asked.
Were they happy days, your school days?
I think when I was in the infant school, I think they was very happy. We used to have a lady there, a teacher, and she used to have a set of drums. She used to do a roll call on the drums in the morning when you went in, and for us all to sort of sit down, and we'd all sit down. I was ever so trusting when you were little, aren't you? Look up at her and she'd say, "Hark, I can hear the good fairy has arrived." And she kept us going, but the good fairy who waved her magic wand and made us all good for the day. Do you know what I mean? So of course we all had to be good then, because the fairy had waved a wand over us.
Did it always work? Were you always good all day?
Yes, in that class, yeah. We thought she was wonderful. And if somebody was naughty, she'd get the roll on the drums. And the elf, the wicked elf, was an art, like it had been about in the classroom. and little Johnny, whoever he was, she made naughty. So she'd go and roll on the drums and bring the good fairy out to make good again. So, but of course it was days of rationing and everything like that. And of course it was like Wonderland to us. We used to think she was wonderful. But, so I was happy then. But I think when I went into the junior school and then to the senior school, I'm afraid things went from bad to worse. I didn't get on very well at all.
Why? What happened?
I suppose it was learning problems. And I know once, there was, years ago, see, if they thought you had learning problems, like you'd call it today, oh, years ago they'd say you was backward or simple or dumb or something like that, you know. You'd go to a special school. And so at one time I think there was thoughts that I should go to a special school. And so my mother, who refused to accept this, you know, it was utterly ridiculous. And so my dad thought, I'll teach her. So of course I was about 7 or 8. And I can remember he sat at the big table and he said, now if you multiply, divide, subtract and all that, and I don't know, whatever is he on about? I couldn't understand it at all. Because of course I was only used to adding up, taking away, sharing, like, you know. And so he was talking a foreign language, so he gave up. And he just said to me, which is a very good thing really, he said, shout out to him, and he said, Nell, I can't teach her. He said, I can. He said, I ain't got the patience, he said. So he looked at me and he said, you're not stupid, you're not dumb. He said, you got 2 perfectly good eyes, use them and look around you. You got good hearing, something wrong, you can hear. Listen. You got a tongue in your head. When you don't know something, ask. But most important of all, you got an excellent brain. And when you ask the question and they give you the answer, think about it and ask yourself, do I agree with that? If you do, fair enough, and if you don't, stick to it.
Have you always lived by that?
Yeah. Because I used to think myself, it was, I suppose, first going, well, he told me your father's important in your life, and when you were especially a little girl, you know, about 8. And of course he was like a god. He was like the boss of the house. You know, what he said when he ruled our house, you know, like, and we all had to do what father said. So when our dad told me I was not dumb and I had a good brain, then I believed him because he was the boss.
Was that the way it was with families in, you know, in the 40s? That, you know, the father was still the very dominant figure.
Yes, yeah. Unless, of course, unless you was lucky enough to marry a little short chap and you could boss about. But I mean, if he was a bit particular on height and physique, yeah.
What sort of man was your father then?
Well, he was a docker. He worked at Avonmouth Docks, and but he was well educated man. He went to St Mary Ratcliffe School, and I think he had medals and that for good attendance and punctuality, and you know, he was a good scholar. And my mother was a good scholar too. She was she went to St Nicholas's School, Roman Catholic school, and I think she also went to St Mary's on the Quay, also a Catholic school. And she was a good scholar. In fact, she used to, you know, like in the Evening Post, they used to sort of give you a little thing to write about, the most embarrassing thing that happened to you, or the best holiday you ever had, or something like that. And she used to go in for these competitions, and she used to win several times as well. So she was, and she was a very good letter writer. Years ago, of course, they didn't have phones or things of that sort. So when we came back from Cornwall, she kept in touch with the people at Cornwall by letter writing. And also we'd go down to visit them and have holidays in Cornwall. So it was quite lucky. So, one boy in our road told me, it's all right for you, Pat Roberts, your mum and dad's rich. But it was because we had a piano.